I have a lot of memories from when I was a child. One that's always stuck out to me, though, was when I was about 10 years old, and I was in school, and I struggled. And I didn't struggle with English, math, or science. I struggled holding still. And I would try to listen and focus and process ideas, but I couldn't help myself. And to be honest, I would sit there and then I would just start tapping. And the students in the class would look at me and they'd say, "Hey, stop tapping." A lot of the time, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then eventually even the teachers got after me and they would yell at me and they'd say, "Clint, you have to stop tapping." It got so bad that I got sent to the principal's office for tapping. And he said to me, "Okay, maybe when you go back to class, just try sitting on your hands." And so I did. I went back to class, and when I felt myself starting to tap, I did this. I sat on my hands. And that worked for about 5 seconds. One time I was tapping in class, and my teacher, Mr. Jensen, he looked at me and he yelled. And he said, "Clint, stay after class." And I thought to myself, this is it. I am done. Now, I've always been the type of person that believes that a single moment in time can change a person's life. And this was one of those moments for me. And I will never forget it. And so I was sitting there with Mr. Jensen and an empty classroom. And he walked past me and he sat next to his desk and he said, "Clint, come here. I want to talk to you." And as he looked me right in the eye, he said, "Now, I need you to know something. You're not in trouble. But I do have just one question that I have to ask you." And he said, "Have you ever thought about playing the drums?" And in that moment, Mr. Jensen, he leaned back and he opened the top drawer of his desk. And he reached in and he pulled out my very first pair of drumsticks. And he held them in his hands and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, Clint, you're not a problem. I think you're a drummer." From that moment on, I've never put those sticks down. I've toured, recorded, and played drums all over the world. My whole college education was paid for with drumsticks in my hand. Just because of a single moment in time when somebody believed in me. And he saw something in me that I didn't even see within myself. And from that moment, I learned that there's a difference between being the best in the world and being the best for the world.
Good evening. Welcome to our October 10th called board meeting and combined with our regularly scheduled work session for 5 p.m. The purpose of our call board meeting is to take official action on a recommendation from the superintendent to appoint a new risk management director. sorry, I was trying to. All right, 1.02. Superintendent is recommending Mr. Chad Kirchen to serve as Director of Risk Management for the Muscogee County School District. Motion by Ms. Williams, second by Ms. Jackson. Are there any questions? You can see the resume is attached. Were we hand voting or electronic? All right, we are ready to vote now. All right, that passes. Mr. Kirchen, congratulations. Somebody adjust the mic.
Well, I'd like to thank the board and Dr. Lewis, superintendent, and the director of HR, Tanya Carter, for giving me this opportunity. I'd also like to thank my family. My wife Heather is here. So is my son Nolan. If it weren't for my wife, I wouldn't even have, gained the things I've gained in my life, the experiences that I've gotten. And she's always been the one that actually challenged me to do more with my life, and I really appreciate that. Nolan and Jocelyn's not here. She's attending University of Georgia on a full Zelda scholarship, thanks to you, honestly. She graduated from Columbus High School a year ago, and just leaps and bounds every year, just amazing with that. Nolan is on the autism spectrum. He graduated 2 years ago and has continued with Muscogee County, and is now involved in project search and working as an intern in thesis. So I just want to thank you guys all very much for this opportunity. With what you guys have done for my children, I feel it's beholden upon me to at least do my very best to help you guys out where I can too. Okay.
All right, thank you, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, family, you have to stand up and do our ceremonious wave at everyone. Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Motion to adjourn by Ms. Williams, second by Ms. Chambers. All in favor, wave. Thank you. All right, we're going to our work session now. I want to welcome you all. Thank you so much for all that you do, and we were trying to pink out up here in observance of breast cancer awareness. So that's why you see us dressed pretty in pink. First up on our agenda is our public agenda. We have 3 people signed up: Heather Champion, Jane Curitan, and Larry Davis. Ms. Champion, are you here? Mr. Curitan, are you here? And Mr. Davis, are you here? None here. Did we have someone else? Is someone to speak in? Okay, Mr. Concrete was the, all right, let me.
Yes, sir.
And while you're making your way to the microphone, citizens are encouraged to address items on the board agenda or to initiate presentations of issues appropriate to the school board for consideration. The board meeting is not the appropriate place to review any individual employee performance or individual parent complaint that have not been addressed by the principal or the superintendent. Citizens are encouraged to follow our normal channels to address such problems or to address the board, not to email a department. The appropriate channels is to go through the superintendent's office by the prescribed time, which is 2 p.m. currently. All right, and give us your name since I did not have it.
Okay, it's James Allen Aston,
Okay.
representing Davis Concrete Products. My wife in the back, Pamela Aston, we co-own Davis Concrete Products, and we have currently, or we have pumped the grease traps for the Muscogee County School Board for the last 10 years. So I'm actually here to protest the bid process. So we pumped the grease traps for the last 10 years, and somehow this year we missed the bid. And when I say we missed the bid, apparently it was emailed to us. We have email correspondence through the Muscogee County School District almost daily. But somehow, two of my people in my office missed the bid to rebid the grease traps. I don't know if you guys would like to see this, but I actually have some email correspondence back and forth that happened probably a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, asking if we were expecting to have a price increase for the upcoming year to pump the grease traps. And Pamela, my wife, she responded that we did not expect any price increase. And this is, email verification back and forth that we're going to bid on the contract, saying that we did not expect a price increase and that we're asking if we could possibly extend it for 2 more years at the current rate that we've done it for the last 10 years. So today, this all happened today. So I'm sorry for my appearance, but this was really short notice for us. We went back and we audited our billing statement for the Muscogee County School District. And it appears that the bid that we would have turned in, which was verified in email 2 months ago, comes in roughly $1,000 a quarter less than the person that won the bid. We do not understand how we missed the bid meeting. So I'm protesting the process of the bid meeting. If we weren't going to be invited to the bid meeting, that's fine, but that's not what we were told. We were told that we should have been at the bid meeting. We have no information inviting us to the bid meeting. So basically what I'd like to do is I'd like to, before you guys ratify the vote to accept the incoming contract, review my numbers that would have stayed the same. I have email verification back and forth that we planned on attending the bid meeting, and at least take a look at our numbers against the current bid numbers. I don't know if that's possible. I'm here for the 15 people that work for me, trying to hold and maintain a contract.
Well, let me just say that at this point, we are not in the bid process, okay? We have a procurement process that you go through. Once the superintendent make a recommendation to us, then we take action. So to ask us to be a part of the bid process and to vote, that's not how that works.
So is there no way to create a subcommittee to review this and find out why we weren't?
No, sir, we have a procurement process, and so
Okay.
we do have a purchasing division. I'm not really sure what could have possibly happened, but I would imagine that someone, Dr. Lewis, from purchasing should have been able to assist.
Well, we do have a very prescribed process for advertising and procuring bids, which you're obviously familiar with, having done it before. And I know this, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is the final year of the 3-year contract for this particular service. Is that correct, Mr. Joseph? So anyway, the bottom line is we do have a process. We can certainly go back and review the process, which I think Mr. Joseph has done to this point. And I don't know where the problem may have come, but we have several ways of notifying. One is on our website for any time, as well as email. And we do have a very specific process on if the bid is submitted, everyone has to be in attendance for all that process, which I think you're familiar with.
Yes.
But Mr. Joseph, we can certainly talk with him and go from here, but at this point, I don't know if there's anything else can be done, but we can review that with him and then go back and look at our process, and we'll either make a revised revision, but at this point, the recommendation is the recommendation based on the process to this point.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
This played out, because especially if it's the third year of a contract and he didn't submit a bid and nobody kind of ventured out to ask why. I'd like to know more about that.
All right, thank you, sir. We have two presentations next.
One. I received a text from Ms. Williams indicating that Ms. Amos is apparently ill tonight, so we're going to push that to either the 24th or to next month's meeting, work session, depending on which works best for everyone's schedule. So it will not happen tonight, but we will hear it in the future.
All right, second up is the hygiene depository update.
And as they come forward, most of you are recognize this was a request by a board member for presentation on this particular topic. We have been very blessed. Before the state recognized the need for this, we did in Muscogee County. I'm very pleased to share with you the update. That's just exactly right. So with that, we have Ms. Florine Dawkins, who works in collaboration with Susan Jones on this project, and Janice Bloodworth kind of coordinates that along with the state allocation. So turn it over to them.
Good evening.
Good evening. We'll get the presentation going in just a second.
Okay.
Maybe? While they're getting that started, we'll go ahead and get going and let it catch up.
Speak to the mic.
We'll go ahead and get started.
There we
Okay. Ooh.
You're good.
All right. So this was just a hygiene initiative, and one of the things that we like to call this is it is a public-private partnership where we are able to take state dollars as well as community dollars and provide services to our students. And we'll let Florine talk about the beginnings of this. Maybe.
I'm going to take a little, in African American church, we say we're going to take a little privilege. So I'm going to take a little privilege. We have a little personal privilege, and we have this. And one of the things that's not on our display or our template is that 7 years ago, I was hired by Dr. Lewis to be the community liaison. And we had 10, as the state called them, failing schools, but he said we would call them challenge. So we called them challenge schools. And during that time, Dr. Lewis asked me to come on board, and I worked with Susan Jones. We were going to find ways that we were going to get these schools up like they needed to be. We had a series of 10 community meetings. A lot of you on the board attended the community meetings to find out what was some of the problems why we had these challenge schools. And one of the reasons was excessive absence and tardies. And we met with the parents, the communities, and the schools, and we started working on an initiative, and this is what we're a part of, the initiative to change the tide of a challenge school. Dr. Lewis came in, and he and I worked on a plan for 4 months. And after Christmas, he called me into his office, and he said, everything we've worked on, throw it away. I almost had a heart attack. He said, we're not going to do it. He said, we're going to do this, this, and this. We're going to keep these kids in school. Once they come to school, they're not going home. And whatever we have to do to keep them in school, we're going to do it. So one of the things we put wash machines in schools. We gave everything a child. We started closets. Spencer has a Spencer boutique. If they come in inappropriately dressed, you go get some clothes, you go back to class. One of the biggest things we found out, we needed hygiene products. They needed everything to come to school with dignity, as he said. So my office upstairs started looking like Walmart. We were getting hygiene, and we were buying, and we were going and getting. Dr. Lewis and I, we met with all the pastors. We met with everybody. All our community partners. We went to lunch. We met with. He was putting this program out for the community to see. We need your involvement to make these schools function. So what we did 3 years ago, on October 18th, 2019, we opened the Muscogee County Hygiene Repository. And that was one of his names. He wanted to call repository. So we were getting a name. Every child in school, every day with dignity. We supply hygiene products for all of our schools, every school, not just the failing schools, every school. We supply hygiene, soap, deodorant, every toiletry you name, sanitary products, everything. And we were one of the only schools that did it in the state. So we were contacted. We went on webinars for the State Department of Education and everything. How do you do this? Why are you doing it? How are you getting funding? But I didn't tell you, he also told me, Florine, you got to raise the money to pay for all of this. There's no budget, you got to raise it. So I started. And we got, Georgia Stump called us, and I don't know if you're familiar with you. Several of the board members met with us. Georgia Stump is a coalition of women, and the Stump starts for Stop Taxes on Menstrual Products. But they were legislating and trying to get the state to stop this. But the state legislature says, we're not going to stop the taxes, but we'll give you so much money each year for menstrual products. And Janice is going to talk about that. But they came to us. Now, we were delayed a year for the meeting because I was in a car accident. So we met this June 16th, and several of you were here. And that's all of us there when we met with Georgia Stump. And they're using us. We are like the pilot program for the state. Everybody looks for us. We got calls from Tuskegee, everywhere. How do you do this? And because with you guys that sit there in those seats, the board, Dr. Lewis, Janice, Edwin, Ward Odom, Susan Jones, we're able to do it. It's a collaborative project between all of us. I remember one day, and Pat, you need to know, the statute of limitations on keeping secrets expired yesterday. Okay, it expired. I remember one day, Lonnie Jackson needed a dryer. And I had, everybody, people start running when you start asking for money. They don't want to talk. So Pat was up here, and she says, what do you need? And she says, I'm going to buy the dryer, but you can't tell anybody. So it expired yesterday, Pat. So I thank all of you, because you all have played it's become a project. Miss Jackson, you had one of our signs made that you took to meetings with you. So it's been a project with all of us. We've been so successful that we have increased it. We've doubled the space. Mr. Odom have remodeled. We've doubled our space. It's been a project with the dream of Dr. Lewis. And I want to tell you all something. Last month, Kia had given us 34 bags of material. And Dr. Lewis had to load the 34 bags and put them in there in August heat. But that's what I mean. This is our project. Our members of the board have given money, the audience. It's been a project. I remember when Ward Odom's men were out there, they wanted to know how could they donate. So I am so proud of every one of you. And you have a gift in your seat celebrating our 3 years, because we turned 3 years old the 18th of October. So that's where we are today. Janice is going to talk about the numbers, and then I'll come back and close out. Thank you.
So as you can see, as she was saying, it is definitely not only a partnership with the state and us as the district and the community partners. It is also within our own district. It's a collaboration between student services, finance, facilities and operations, as well as the community support. And with that state support, we have gotten let me start over. Over the past 4 years, we've been awarded $85,000 from the state for the hygiene grant. The one thing about the hygiene grant that is different from the repository is this is solely for feminine hygiene products. However, the repository allows us to do all sorts of hygiene items. Like I said, we've gotten $85,000. In year one, we were able to buy 923 cases of sanitary pads. The next year, we were able to buy 231 cases, and then we added the wipes on that the next year. In 2022, we received $20,000. We started diversifying at this point because when we did this the first year, we thought it was a one and done by the state. The state was going to give us money one time. We maxed out what we thought we needed at that point to get the biggest bang for our bucks. And we ordered just the sanitary pads. And just a little story about the sanitary pads and us ordering these, that, you know, us as accountants, we have our spreadsheets and we have all of our spreadsheets all tied out from the amount that the state or the vendor said that they would give us. And once we started to place the order, they're like, well, you bought so much, we're going to give you a discount. So then we're back to our spreadsheets again, having to reallocate everything back out. But Everin has been doing a fantastic job in getting the best price for us on all of these. And we're doing this the way that the state wants us to do this. We're ordering at the district level, so we are able to maximize that spend. And as you can see in 22, like I said, we expanded some. We're now buying pads, liners, underwear, and the wipes. And then for this year, we are in the process of ordering at this point, and we have gotten $24,000 for this. This is a lot of product. It is a lot of items that we have delivered out to the schools, and we're in the process currently of delivering the items that we ordered in 22 out to the schools. And we have been working with the schools and allowing them to distribute this wherever they need to in the schools, encouraging them to have them in the bathroom, in the classroom, in the clinic, in the front office, anywhere that they can have them, because it's a lot. The state intends for us to give this to the students. And one of the things that Georgia Stomp has encouraged us to kind of get the schools to ask the students, it's, what do you need today? Do you need this for, do you need it for the week, or do you need it today? What do you need? And the other important question is there anybody else in your home that needs these products? So we're not just kind of basing it just on the students. We really are trying to get this out as much as we can. And like I said, it's not a, here's just one. Here's what you need for the week. Please go ahead and take this. We'll put it in a bag. It's not obvious that that's what you have. And so we've been able to do that, and we want the schools to think that way because we're getting this money every year, and this product is coming in every year. And like Florine was saying, we do want to give a special thank you to everyone that's contributed to the repository, both in money and in-kind donations. We cannot do it without that support. And as you can see, we've gotten about $16,000 in cash and over $20,000 in-kind for the repository. You can see here the items that we've been able to purchase and been able to supply for that. I won't read through all of them. But you can see that we were able to do toothbrushes and toothpaste, deodorant, soap, and just being able to provide a wide variety of items through that closet. And this is open, as Florine was saying, to all schools. And just some pictures of this. We have 2 classrooms at the old Muscogee. And it is about 800 square feet for each of the 2 classrooms that is just full of supplies that we're able to support. And I'll just turn it back over to Florine to talk about the final piece. Yeah, nope.
One of the things I think with the state, one of the things too, the state this year allotted fifth grade girls to have the products. It's only been high school and middle school. This year, fifth grade girls would getting money to have the products, so that's what's different. Fifth grade girls now, we supply all the elementary schools, but it's not a lot of money if you only do fifth grade, so we make up the difference of everything. One of the things that most of the teachers who come pick it up, we have principals, we have everybody come pick everything up. Those numbers you saw up there are totally off because for the last 2 weeks, they have probably doubled. We have ordered so much more this year. I think, Edwin, like 2,000 bottles of deodorant. Our numbers are huge because of the pandemic and everything. Those numbers are down because since the report was given, we've given so much. And we'll see like 6 or 7 schools this week. One of the things I want to leave you with, Ravenheart is one of our communities and schools. It's a program that Dr. Lewis, we got, that's the state. We put personnel in schools to work with attendance and excessive tardies. Susan Jones and I have worked with the people in the schools. She was telling me, if you think this is something minor, I want to leave you with 3 little stories she gave me. One of the little boys said, "Miss Hart, can I have an extra toothbrush? My 2-year-old brother doesn't have one yet." And then another one, the little girl came in and said, "Can we have some soap, Miss Hart? Because we've been using dishwashing liquid and it itches." And I think the best one is a 3rd grader. He says, he came in there, he says, "Where did we get all this good stuff?" And he was so excited, and she was telling him, "Well, the superintendent has a new plan and the school board, we're going to give it to you." He said, "All the time?" "Yes." And she said he walked out and he came back in and he said, "Miss Hart, will you tell him thank you?" So, we have any questions?
Ms. Williams, go ahead.
I don't have any questions, but I have a couple comments because this has been near and dear to my heart. But I want to give a shout out to 3 people. 2 of them are on our state delegation, that's Representatives Debbie Buckner and Carolyn Hughley, because they were passionate about this and getting it through the state. And the 3rd is Dr. Mike Edmondson, another person who was just passionate about this. As a high school science biology teacher, he saw it firsthand. And you would expect most men not to come forward and stand up and say, "This is important to me because it's important to our students," but he was one that did. And so, you know, I like to joke around and say that's how we do it in Muscogee County. We do it right. We do what we have to do to get our students through. But I am so proud of this county for this program and for the people who have supported it. I mean, I have talked to people who say, "I only have $20, but I want it to go to this." It is important to keep our kids in class, and this is doing it, and thank you. And thank you for the gift, too. Very nice.
Thank you so much for the gift. And I know you mentioned our plant services division, Mr. Ward Odom and the whole team, but having the space to be designed out is also critical important. So we'll know what we have. We can actually keep the inventory, and the schools will have a centralized place to come to and pick up what is needed. But I do really appreciate all of the effort that you do, Ms. Dawkins, especially with corralling our partners and keeping our partners engaged in this tremendous effort. But it is all of us. This is so important, and it has been important from the beginning, and watching it expand and having women who are involved in STOMP, as well as our local delegation, to advocate for all of students across this state to finally recognize the need needs to go down to elementary school. And so that's all a collaborative effort, and the way you all are doing it so well that it stands out and to be noted. So thank you again, and I too am very proud, Ms. Buckner.
Make sure I get up here. I too want to thank you, Ms. Dawson, for all your efforts
And I really appreciate that history that you gave us, that you went all the way back. And I appreciate Dr. Lewis's involvement in that history and that, the motto, every child in school, every day with dignity. I mean, that says it all to me. You know, we want them in school, but with dignity. Children can come to school every day. You know, problems related in that regard to them not coming to school, but with dignity every day. And that's just such a good statement, and it just says something for our county. And I do appreciate that, Dr. Lewis. That was just a great model, a great statement.
Well, I just want to say thank you again to Ms. Dawkins and to Susan Jones, who work collaboratively along with all of our partners and all the board members. I thank you for your continued support for this. I come from a family of all boys, but I have 2 daughters. And all of a sudden, it took on new meaning when you're dad. But certainly it's important. But I do want to say this, and this is going to go out to the entire community. Another big issue that was already mentioned to some extent is dental care. Dental care, the research tells us the lack of dental care for young children, early years, is one of the biggest impediments and barriers to coming to school. So this is one we're dealing with our upper elementary, middle, and high school, but we have to now focus on, and thanks to Mercy Med and Valley Healthcare, who are working with us in our in-school clinics to provide that, but we need more. We need more children getting that health care, or that dental care, because that is, according to research, is one of the single biggest reasons kids do not attend school. So it's something we have to continue to address. So that's next, right. But thank you, Ms. Dawkins. You give credit to everybody else, but I just want to make sure that everybody else is recognized. Thank you.
I do want to back up and take that moment of privilege Ms. Dawkins referenced. We've been so bogged down with sadness over the past few days. This sadness fog that I've been in, I failed to pause at the very beginning. And I do want to do that now before we go into our committee reports, because we lost, our students are grieving in 2 different incidences. We had the tragedy on Steam Mill Road with the hit and run. I did learn today that the baby is at the Children's Hospital in Augusta, and he is breathing on his own today.
He's improving, yes.
He's improving. So that's the good news, but that family still has to pray for this recovery and pray to get through the loss of the sister. And then coming from the game Friday, one of the football players lost both parents and the baby sister in a tragic car accident. And so it's just a lot of sadness. And I just failed to do that. And so if you would, we will have a moment of silence for the English Pugh family and the Jakes family. Thank you so very much.
Madam Chair, if I may also interject, as much as we want to always reach out and support these families, and they're going to need lots of support, do want to encourage everybody to make sure it is a verifiable and an appropriate source of funding. Unfortunately, there are people who take advantage of these types of situations, may put a GoFundMe page out there that may not be for the intended purpose. And as hard as it is to believe that, there are those who do that. So please make sure that the source that if you choose to support and fund these families in some form or fashion, that it is a verifiable, respectable source, appropriate source.
Thank you for the reminder. All right, our first committee up is the Education Committee.
Yes, so as Mr. Seifert and, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
We have one item on the Education Committee, and Dr. Lewis has already said, Mr. Seifert and Mrs. Hall will make this presentation.
So before they get started, I feel like I need to introduce this a little bit. As most of you recognize, hopefully you do recognize, our strategic plan basically was in the form of the 10-year plan I wrote almost 10 years ago now. And I'm proud to say that it is continuing to do the work that we need it to do. I'm very proud of what we've done, but thanks to the board's support, it's taken us this long to get all the adopted and aligned resources we needed to really launch this plan. And quite frankly, the pandemic has provided the impetus for us to have to go back and recalibrate, as we've shared with you. We have good news to share with our SAT results that are above state and national averages. Last week, the graduation rate came out. So the good news is, the longer they're with us, the better they do. But what we have to do is look and realize that we have children. And one of the things we have to constantly remind our students and our schools that some of our students coming in have not been in school for various and sundry reasons, and we have a variety of situations out there. Some of our families were inconvenienced in a minor way during the course of the pandemic. Others were totally devastated with the loss of caregivers or family members, or just the fact that for whatever reason, students needed to stay home. So we have, in some cases, we have, in some schools, in some grades, we have 3 years of first graders, for all intents and purposes. We're having to recalibrate. That is my word for this year. We have to recalibrate expectations and recalibrate where we are. So one of the things I've been working on since, for about the last 6 months, I shouldn't say I gave, kind of like with the hygiene closet, gave the vision, and then we have great people, very talented, dedicated people to help develop a plan that would check in with me and along the way. But through this plan, with the resources, it's taken us that long to get adopted materials at the cost they are, aligned to our resources, and we are now prepared for what I think, coming out of the pandemic, looking at where we are, assessing where our students are based on STAR data in math and literacy. We are now having to take a step back, realizing that, again, many of our students were impacted in varying ways, but we have a goal to try and work on this literacy particularly for 2025. And we're calling it P3 2025, as you'll hear, because pre-K through third grade, we know that's critically important. That's the foundation. And if we get this right, and it will be something that will go on up through the system through 12th grade, but we have to get this piece right, and you're going to hear more about that. Keeping in mind, we're also changing, yet again, the state is changing English language arts standards and math standards, yet again. So we're constantly on the shift. Shift happens.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. I do want to give a shout out to Florine again, because I think the world of Florine, and she does a wonderful job making sure our kids are in school, and appreciate you. Thank you for what you do. All right. Dr. Lewis gave us some instructions and a vision for our students to be reading. We want specifically reading at grade level by 2025. And we believe we have a plan in place that while it's a daunting and challenging task, it is very achievable, and we believe it can happen. All kids need to be able to read and have mathematics skills to get them ready for the workforce. And really, we're moving kids into a career. It's not just college, we're moving them into a career. So there's a lot of folks that have their hands in this, and it's good because we've collaborated over the last several months to make sure that we have a document, a plan in place that's not only spoken, but it's also written. So we have this document that we're going to present to you tonight that will provide some guidance for our teachers and our principals in our 32 elementary schools. And we're excited about it and looking forward to presenting this information to you. I do want to introduce Christine Hull. She'll be working with me on this, has done an outstanding job helping in formulating this document, and we are really appreciative of what she's done in providing that support. So, moving on. Here's our rationale. Given that awkward pause. But this is what it is. This is where we're at.
And by the way, the state's not a whole lot better on the state average.
That's
So we're all
correct.
taking a step back and having to rethink.
But I'll point you in into the graphic over to the right, and we've heard this term for many years. We need to have students reading on grade level. And you can see the graphic there, 4 times likely to drop out if they're not reading on grade level. And I know we've just received the graduation rate, and the rates are very good for us. We're making significant progress. But we want our 3rd graders at grade level in reading and math. These data points that we're looking at are, we use Star Literacy as a universal screener. So we'll continue to use these data points as measuring points by 2025. The 58.8% 3rd grade, you saw that with the information presented by Mr. Knopf when we had our Georgia milestone scores. That's where we're at. We're with 3rd graders reading on grade level or above, and then our math score. That's a Georgia milestones math score, and that's what we have to measure our students by. Proficient, yes, ma'am. So the purpose of this, we know we're transitioning and have been transitioning out of the pandemic, and we want to make sure that we are using this opportunity, as Dr. Lewis would say, recalibrate, refocus our attentions. We have a number of teachers in positions that prior to pandemic were not in positions of educating our students. We know we need to have to provide the necessary supports to them. So this document, and the purpose of this document, is really to take a hard look at our Tier 1 instruction, our foundational instruction, which every kid in our school district should be receiving. Every student receives on grade level standards-based instruction. And then if there's need for supports, we provide those supports for those struggling students and those interventions to help them get to grade level. Again, this is focused in the area of pre-K through 3rd grade, but this does not diminish what we're doing in our grades 4 through 12. We are still focusing on standards-based instruction, Tier 1 instruction, to make sure that all students are receiving on grade level instruction, and provided the supports through the multi-tiered system of supports to help support those kids if they are not. This document and this plan is certainly aligned and integrates this approach, and we want to make sure that there's some consistency in language and terminology throughout the district. I think we have pockets of where folks are teachers and administrators may have some different terminology, and we want to make sure that it's everything's aligned and consistent. And in this document, you'll have there's a number of terminology definitions, so it gives teachers and principals the understanding of what these terms or terminology are associated with this educational approach. And also providing the necessary interventions, again, that we get really good at 3 or 4 high-quality, evidence-based interventions that support learning and those students that may struggle with reading and mathematics. How we went about developing this, in the summer, we have a conference called Empower, and that's a 5-day conference. One of the days is a leadership conference, where we had multiple sessions meeting with principals, assistant principals, to talk about pre-K through 3rd grade and the needs in those particular grade levels. There were sessions where they attended, they provided us feedback on what they're seeing in the classrooms and the supports they need to get that to develop this plan. We also reached out to multiple teachers. We had principals review this. We had teachers review this. It was developed by directors and content specialists, had some academic coaches review it. So this plan has a lot of hands on it in the development phase of it. And what I do want to say is that this document is living and breathing. It can be edited, it can be modified. It's like a school improvement plan where you see adjustments need to be made, we can make those adjustments. It is a plan that is robust, but will definitely grow over the next 3 years and even beyond those 3 years. The plan's aligned to our district improvement plan. These are our goals that we have in our current district improvement plan. We will this spring go into a comprehensive needs assessment and a new district improvement plan, and this will be a part of that process. These goals, professional development, that's leadership as well as teacher professional development. Obviously, we have personalized learning, multi-tiered systems of support, and I want to say just one thing about those two that intertwine together. Personalized learning and multi-tiered systems of support work hand in hand together. If we do those things right, things will happen for our kids. And that's why we're providing multiple opportunities for professional development to support these two initiatives. We have a 3-year plan for the personalized learning that has been developed with Cheryl Green as kind of leading that charge, and I can tell you that's a very robust plan that is embedded in this plan. And then, of course, when we talk about mission, vision, and values, that's always a part of what we do as a district. So the supports we're going to provide is, and talk briefly about that, the P3 2025 guiding document is the audience are the principals and teachers. That's who this document is prepared for. We want, and we're going to go into the document. Christine's going to go over this document with you, not in total detail, but just give you some highlights. And it's a document that is well developed and is teacher friendly as well as administrator friendly. There's a professional development plan in there that over the next 3 years will be integrated in with our other comprehensive professional development plan. There's an assessment plan associated with it that really ties all our assessments, gives explanations of each assessment and what each assessment is for, and how you use those assessments and the data associated with those assessments. This document ties to our Canvas courses, so it's embedded in the document itself. So when you click on a link, it takes you right to the Canvas course. And all the external programs and resources that we have associated with our instructional guides, whether it's from the state or local guides, all those are associated and embedded in this document itself. As I said, we are, and and we'll talk about, when we get into the plan, we'll talk about the actual key strategies that we have in there. We really talk about our continuous improvement process, our assessment process, our literacy instruction, our math instruction, how we engage family, because that's a main part of it, and how we engage our community. So that's a three-legged stool. Dr. Lewis talked about this way back when you had that three-legged stool, you need all three legs for you to be able to sit on it. And we want to make sure that that we engage all those partners so we can make sure that this plan is successful.
And those three legs are the school, the family, and the community.
Right. Thank you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to transition into the document, and Christine is going to go through, and then, like I said, this is I think it's 66 pages, somewhere around in there. And it has a lot of information in it, and let her go ahead and transition into that.
Thank you, Mr. Seifert. Good evening, Christine Hull, Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Pre-K through 12. I'm going to do my best to navigate you through the document. You do have it in PDF form for your own perusal at your leisure when you want to look through it. You should have.
Does that translate into you're not getting ready to go through all 66?
I am not
No.
going through all 66 pages. No, ma'am. I just want to show you how the document
God only gave
works.
Moses 10 commandments. We're not going to.
Exactly. And if you have any questions following this about the document itself or how to navigate it, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll show you how to click, where to go, and we'll make sure that you have that at your fingertips. I'm just going to show you how it functions because, as Mr. Seifert mentioned, our goal here was to put in the hands of teachers and administrators a workable document where everything was housed together in a comprehensive and strategic way, where they clearly understand and have access to all of the wonderful resources, whether they be technological or their adoptions that we've had over the past several years. This pulls everything together in one guiding document that clearly outlines our district expectations for solid Tier 1 instruction, our universal screening process, our assessment plan, and so on and so forth. So that was the goal, is to make this a working document for educators. So what you have in the table of contents is all of these sections in the table of contents are linked for you to easily click and go where you need. So if I'm a teacher and I want to go to the jump page for educators, I can go directly there in the document. When I go there, I see that I have these frameworks available to me, as well as literacy and mathematics, whatever I need. If I really just want to know more about kindergarten through third grade, Tier 1 literacy, I'm going to jump to that page in the document. And when I get there, I'm going to see right here, I'm not going to click on it because it'll take us down a rabbit hole, but right here is where they can access the Elementary Content Specialist Canvas courses. And when they're enrolled in those courses, and so you all with the board, if you're clicking through this document and you click on a Canvas course, you're not enrolled in that Canvas course. So it's going to bring up a login screen. But do know that our teachers and our administrators are logged into those Canvas courses, and they're signed up for those, and it'll immediately take them where they need to go. All of these sections, let me jump back to the beginning really quick. This is not an easy way to show you guys, but when you go into the document itself, you'll find a lot of links. Like down here is the link to our website. Here we talk about supporting the whole child, and Mr. Seifert has already talked about how it's aligned. The MTSS process is hugely important to ensuring that our students, if they are struggling at Tier 1, that they are provided with those interventions and that they are make sure that we screen them properly and we get them the help and the assistance that they need. Dr. Sutton worked really hard on this with us to make sure our terminology is consistent across the board in every elementary school, that we clearly understand the MTSS process for our students as well as universal screening. So all of our screeners and the time of year that they're given, when they should be given, how often they should be given, all of that is in the plan. And this is a graphic that just shows you really easily those pathways to support. Right here are the basics of what Muscogee County School District calls our Tier 1 instruction guide. So every single elementary teacher from pre-K to third grade will see this part of the document. If they don't have a very clear grasp on how to simplify and streamline Tier 1 instruction, it's all right here for them. And at the bottom of all these pages, you'll see some little arrows. Those are indicative of our district improvement goals. So they color coordinate so that the educators can see all the way throughout. These are the goals that we're after, aligned with our district improvement plan, and these are the sections that match up with that. I'm going to zip through this. Personalized learning, Mr. Seifert had mentioned that this is very intertwined with all of our goals, and so there's an entire section here on personalized learning that Sherry Green helped us work on. And down here, this navigation is not easy, but down at the bottom you can see there's a link to the Canvas course that all of the teachers and administrators have taken this Canvas course. There's a PL module that they have already taken, and it leads them through her plan, their plan. It's a whole team effort for personalized learning and the rollout for personalized learning. Then we get into our continuums of support, and again, I'm going to go quickly through these. You're welcome to click through as you need to or want to. There are also external links like Georgia Early Learning and Development Standards. So any external links where we follow the state of Georgia standards of excellence, when we have the new math standards and when we have the new ELA standards, as Mr. Seifert said, this is a living document. So those links can then be embedded, and it's a quick click for a teacher or an administrator to locate those standards. And that's going to be really important with that new rollout where everybody's looking, where do I find the information? How do I find sample lesson plans? All of that will be in the document. We do talk a lot about the gradual release model. And so if we have some new teachers who are not real familiar with that, we do have a lot of teachers coming out of other professions, the second professions, who may not have had the pedagogical background necessarily yet, but this document should make that a little bit easier for them to understand the terminology. We get into pre-K, and pre-K mirrors our K3, but as you can see here, this is specific to pre-K resources. We've had a lot of help from Ms. Thomas, Kimberly Thomas, and Keo White Lindsay, who have put together some incredible resources for our pre-K students and teachers. So they can click here, and they have to start here at Tier 1. So this is the required on grade level standard for every single student. For example, every student should experience 10 to 15 minutes of planned story time a day. So this clearly outlines how much time every student should be exposed to whatever the concept or skill or standard. So here, daily alphabet routines, 5 minutes. So as you go through the document, you'll see little symbols. Anytime there's a lighthouse, that indicates time. How much time on task? How much time with that particular skill or strategy or concept? The light bulbs give the teachers tips. These are tips as to how you can do this in your classroom or things that we expect to see. And then, of course, the Canvas linking. And this goes through each important conceptual area tied to the standards, and then it tells them how much time, and then when they get down to breaking into groups. So if they're doing small group, whole group, it gives them some framework. Now, this can be flexible depending on the school, the situation, the students, what they need, but this is the framework. This is the expectation. And then we get into Tier 2 and Tier 3. So the goal is always to bring students back up into the Tier 1 so that they are performing on grade level at the level of the standard. If they are not, our MTSS process, going down into this targeted small group intervention for below grade level, and even down into Tier 3, individualized intensive intervention that is significantly below grade level, particularly with those students who are 2 or 3 grade levels behind. And I'm not going to read all this to you. It follows the same format. So when we get into K3, the literacy tiers of instruction, it follows the same Tier 1 as first. It tells a teacher and an administrator exactly what should happen in Tier 1 literacy instruction. And then we go from there into our Tier 2 and Tier 3 targeted interventions. So that's the basic layout. We have a whole section on math. So there's pre-K math and K3 math set up the exact same way as the literacy, and you'll see that paralleled in there as well. And again, here's that note, just letting you all know that our standards are changing, and so a lot of this can be flexible. As we move into the adoption of the new standards, we may find that we need to adjust our times. There's an assessment plan included that is laid out for each of the stakeholders. It's not just the teachers, it's the students in the classroom, the teachers, parents, and the community. So that's a really important piece, that in our assessment plan, we've considered how parents in our community are viewing our assessments and what they need to know along the way. There's also a timeline so that that's very clear to teachers up front and for our principals up front as to what happens during what particular time. Here are the key strategies. For all of these strategies, there are action steps. I'm not going to go through them. You have them, but I do want to highlight the strategies. This was a collective effort by many people who were involved in deciding where do we start? What's the most important thing we need to do, and for which group of people? So we start with our continuum of support for MTSS and personalized learning. Then we have a key strategy that deals with our assessment tools. Our third key strategy is professional development. So you'll see in the plan, there's a comprehensive professional development plan that we're still going to work on and shore up over the next few years. There's a professional development plan for Tier 1 literacy instruction and a professional development plan for mathematics instruction. Strategy 5 deals with family engagement. How are we going to specifically engage those families of pre-K through 3rd grade and even before pre-K? Because we do serve children younger at ages 3. We do some screening. We do coordinate with our daycares, our community centers. So part of that strategy also incorporates reaching down even lower into that age 3. And how do we engage them before they even get to us and encourage them to come to our pre-K?
And if I may interject, you may recall we did a presentation on the basics before, on the birth to time they start school, which is critically important as part of the Columbus 2025 initiative.
Yep. And then the last strategy, which is certainly not the least, is community engagement and quality partnerships. We do a really good job with that already, but this is a specific focus in that pre-K through 3 age range. 3rd grade age range. So this is just an example of a strategy. This is our first strategy. You'll see at the top, there's the strategy and then the action steps that we really feel will move the needle. These are steps, are actionable steps. They're practical, they're doable, and they're within reach. And so we went through very specifically to try to figure out what was going to give us the biggest bang for our buck. For example, on action step number 4 here, this early intervention notebook that Dr. Sutton and Dr. Roberts, Nikia Roberts, have put together collaboratively with other educators. It has been already a huge help with some of our teachers. They didn't necessarily have access to all of this before in a way that was all in one place. So now if they need to look at interventions, they can go to that early intervention notebook. There are tools there for them to use when they don't know what's going to work. And these are high-level best practices that we know are research-based and work with kids. So, for example, that is one of our action steps, to make sure that our Canvas courses and our early intervention notebook, every teacher knows where to find them, they know how to use the tool. So you'll see several of our action steps here listed under each of the key strategies. And just pointing out too, with family engagement, we really talked about how to get this out to our families in more effective ways with communication, and how we can provide for our families easy access to things they can do at home, things they can do over the summer, how they can help their students. So that will be a next step that we'll talk about in a little bit. Then there's the appendix, and I'm, again, not going to go through all of this, but as you click on these, you'll see there's a professional development plan, there's district expectations for supplemental resources. This was a really popular one, so I'll click on this. We've been asked by our principals and our teachers, we've got all these great programs and we've got all these great resources, but how often should we use them? When should we use them? You know, do you expect us to be on these 5 days a week? What's the best practice? And so we have reached out to several of our vendors who provide these wonderful resources for us and say, give us your best practices so we can make sure that is very clear to our teachers. How often do I put a student on IXL? How am I supposed to use Lexia? So this guide will help teachers and administrators to moderate that and to make sure, again, those supplemental resources are being used as such. They do not replace the teacher in the classroom. They are there to supplement instruction and to give them a guideline as to how to do that. Okay. There's also a chart with timeframes for instructional segments that they can use. You will see a good bit of research that the team did to support the practices that were put in the document. And then again, some extra resources that are there for the schools. Every school will have targets set for literacy and math. You can read about those targets, and there is a link in there as you peruse the document. By 2025, those targets are set. And that's Patrick Knopf and his team have spent an extensive amount of time making sure that that was in there. As Mr. Seifert said, there's a lot of terms that we use that need to be unified across the district, so there's key terms and definitions and additional links. I'm gonna hush now because I want to show you the people who have helped support this work and who have looked at it, critically reviewed it. They have dug down deep. They've sent us personal notes and annotations and, hey, this would be better if you could change this here. We could use this better here. All of these are contributors to this work and to this process and will continue to be. You'll see we have several teachers, principals, district level staff. So I would like them to stand now. If you are here and you have supported this work for P3, please stand because you've done the lion's share of this. And they really have been invaluable sources, our region chiefs, all of our cabinet. So we know that this is a collective work by our district for how we will do things in Muscogee County to reach this goal. So thank you.
And so are we going to something next or are you ready for questions? You have a next phase to this report?
We just have one more slide.
Okay.
There you go.
So you can see there's been a lot of work put into this document. Again, this is a three-year plan, and it's living and breathing. We know we're going to continue to develop a district-wide professional development plan that includes these PD sessions for all our teachers. This is really a communication plan for internal and external stakeholders. The internal, obviously our folks, our teachers. We're going to begin that process this week and talking with our principals, and then next week talking with all our pre-K through third grade teachers. And give them an overview of the plan, as well as the parent and community engagement. Dr. Lewis mentioned the basics. We have our early literacy, language and literacy group from the Columbus Chamber, Columbus 2025, as well as United Way. Those folks, along with all our community partners that help us with summer learning, these are all engaged in this process. And then we'll be continuing to update this plan as we move forward when we get more input from teachers and administrators as we monitor the plan as we go forward. So in a nutshell, that's, I apologize if we've taken a little bit of time for this. It's a really robust document. It took a lot of time to create, but now we have to implement the plan and then monitor.
Before you go to questions, I just want to say something that's really important here, I think. Two things. Number one, I had the privilege to meet with Mr. Bill Turner before he passed for whom I have high regard and respect. And one of the things he said to me, he said, one of the problems that people have is they just don't dream big enough. They don't shoot for the moon. This is something we've been working on for some time. This is not new. It just gave it, the impetus came for this particularly as we recalibrate from the pandemic. But this has been something we've been working on for about 8 to 9 years, getting all the resources in place that you all have approved over the years. You've recognized MTSS, our curriculum adoptions, the gradual release model. All of that has been going in building blocks to get us to this point. So we are now ready to get this in place and move it forward. But I do want to say this is not a school system goal. This will not work, it will not move the needle if we don't have those 3 legs in the stool. The community, the parents and family, and the school together. The reality of it is, we have about 6.5 hours a day for 180 days out of the year. They're someplace else the rest of the time. And if we're gonna move the needle, this will not be an accomplishment or a failure by the school system. It'll be an accomplishment or failure as a community. So this is a call to action for us all to get behind this and make this work on behalf of our students and our community. Thank you.
You want to turn that back over to the education?
Yes, I have a question. You hit your mic. Okay.
We're going to do questions now, and you say you had a question, Mrs. Green?
I do. So the action that would be required from the board will come gradually, or do you need something immediately on this plan, or are you just updating us? Because we did ask for this.
Yes. This is a response to the board's inquiry about how we're going to move forward as a result of the pandemic and some of the results that we've seen that, again, this is not unlike what you're going to see across the state. We're just going to we've been moving forward on this plan all the way through. It's just we now use P3 2025 as a target and a date certain to try and work toward getting this benchmark performance. It's audacious, it's big, and it's up to us to get it done, but it's collective we together. So yes,
and I wasn't clear on the rollout either. That was my question. I wasn't clear on the rollout.
Rollout's happening right now.
Okay, and so the parent engagement piece, are you expecting feedback, or are you just gonna do a presentation at maybe parent meetings or something like that? How are you pursuing the parent engagement?
As this initial document was designed for teachers and administrators. We will then go back and begin implementing this, and then while we're doing this is start on the parent engagement and start developing those communication documents for parents and then community members. But this is all inclusive. We'll continue this process as we're moving forward over the next 3 years.
Mrs. Chambers?
Yes, I just have a general question. This is I'm sure, a mammoth of a task, and there's a lot of information in this one plan. And so if I'm a classroom teacher, tell me what this looks like for me. I have my teacher's guide, I have STAR reading, STAR math, I have all these other resources that I've already been given, and then I'm given this massive document which has a lot of great resources, but how do I, as a classroom teacher, know what's important and how am I using this? Is this a daily thing that I'm gonna have to look at, or am I using it as a resource when I need it? That's my first part of my question. The second part is it's very scripted. 90 minutes for reading. You're gonna do 30 minutes, and I may be quoting the times wrong. This amount of time, whole group, then small group, then one-on-one, which is great. That's how I taught. But it also depends on what the students in your classroom. So will everyone use that same schedule? And then it's 90 minutes for math. And is that for elementary and the older kids? So that's my two questions, about the schedule, and then about how do I digest this if I'm the classroom teacher?
Yeah, great questions. Initially, we will do an overview with the teachers. We're looking to schedule those times next week to do some Zoom sessions with every pre-kindergarten through third grade teacher. First, we need to get with the principals, that we have principals that have reviewed this document, but also get with all the principals, all 32 elementary principals, to go over the document and provide an overview on how to use the document. It is a lot of information, but what we wanted to do was make sure that we had everything in one place and that there was a structure for Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 instruction, and the recommended times associated with that instruction. These are recommended times, okay? However, we should not, and it's a 2-hour block of time for reading and literacy. That's reading, writing, and listening. And then there's a 90-minute block of time for mathematics. We really need to ensure that that takes place in the early grades. That's imperative. We can work in science and social studies, but the emphasis is on mathematics and literacy. When they get to 4th and 5th grade, certainly those things are still in place, those timelines are still in place. However, as Dr. Lewis would say, it's like an accordion. You know, if you need a little extra time over the course of the year, during that, maybe you're covering some, or your students are struggling a little bit, you need some additional time to provide interventions for those kids. Certainly we'll want to do that. However, we're not going to intervention our way out of Tier 1 instruction. In Tier 1 instruction, everybody needs to be on grade, have on grade level instruction. It doesn't matter how far you're behind. We need to provide additional time through instructional extension time, after school, before school, Saturdays, whatever we can do to provide that support, but they really need that on grade level instruction so they're aware of what they're being, in the 3rd grade, what they're being assessed on when they go into the Georgia milestones. I hope I answered that question.
Not quite.
Okay, well.
If I'm the classroom teacher, though, am I using this as a resource?
It's a framework. It's a framework. And it's a framework and resource because there's multiple resources in there that can be used. And again, it outlines some district expectations. If you have supplemental resources that are they're engaging in, what's the recommended use? Because you want to make sure you're implementing those with fidelity so we get the best return on that.
But it's not a daily lesson plan.
No, it is not. Absolutely not. Now,
Yes, and encouraged.
yeah. And I'll say this, one of the strategies in both the literacy and the math piece is for all of our pre-K, starting out pre-K through 3rd grade, to have recommended daily lesson plans that have been created for folks so they can use those and add to, take away, at a minimum, this is what it is. This is what you do from day 1 to day 180. But it takes a lot of people to create those. But that's and we have teachers out there that have that right now that are high quality teachers that we can pull in during the summer and be able to utilize their expertise with groups of teachers at each grade level to transition all that work into Canvas courses.
I was somewhat like Mrs. Chambers. As you were explaining the framework, I found it so overwhelming, and it made some sense when you go to the action plan. So I could kind of understand it better when I went to the action plan to see what's going on, you know. But I'm still wondering, let's go to the classroom again, as she said. So the screening part, we're using STAR tests and some other kinds of assessment. So let's say in the beginning of the school, and I'm sure we've as we go in a classroom, assessments have been done, do teachers start making assessments? Because you're saying that everybody's on tier one, I'm sure. So I'm thinking that as they go to groups, there will be some different tiering. That's when you get maybe the personalized thinking when they go to the group, and then maybe the individual group. So when kids enter the classroom, teachers assess their kids, or when an assessment made for students?
They're assessing their kids probably on a daily basis. It may be individual
Okay,
questions.
start then. There's no initial. It's just like a regular classroom. Teachers go in like, how are we doing the STAR test now? Like.
It's a universal screener. We do it 3 times a year.
3 times a year.
There's one that's done in the month of August and September. Then we do a midterm in December, January-ish. And then we do a final STAR assessment in April,
and
May.
we're going to keep doing that.
Oh, yes.
So that when kids, so there is some initial assessment for teachers, because we've already done that. The system has done it. So they can use the group assessment that we've already done, and then they can continue to use their various types of assessments.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out. I can see now, the lesson plan kind of make it understandable for the action plans that you have here.
Okay.
It's still overwhelming, but the action plan does kind of see what's going to be done. And it also, all the resources, see how you get all that involved, all the resources, how teachers, the staff development. I'm just wondering, that's pretty good, because I guess everything you said is in the same place, but it's important also for teachers to know how to use the resources that are available. So that's going to take a whole lot too.
Yep.
So it's just overwhelming. We just, I guess, have to do the work on it.
Yeah, yes, it's our job. It's our job to simplify this for teachers. And
again,
to chunk this out.
I do want to emphasize that we did have practitioners as part of this whole development process. This wasn't just done by the district office or by just content specialists. We had administrators and classroom teachers as part of this process.
Yeah,
So-
I would just say it's just overwhelming. That's
Well,
But I certainly, I understand what you're saying. Yes, it is, anytime you put all the information into one document, it puts a lot of information there, but it also, if I need something, I go to that one document. And I'm not going from one spot, one website to the next website, or one Canvas page to another Canvas page.
when we learn how to do it. That's why it's so
absolutely.
overwhelming.
Yeah, I
We
totally
learn
agree with
when-
what you're saying.
It's simplified when we learn how to do it. That's why I say it's overwhelming
Yep.
until we. And Dr. Sly wants to ask a question also.
Yeah, this is about as exciting something as I've heard presented in this room in the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm interested to know, in your assessment process, you mentioned 3 different times in the year. Who makes that assessment? And who says to whoever is being assessed, this is what you need to do to make it meet with the goals of the plan?
So the STAR assessment that we were talking about, the Universal Screener Assessment, excuse me, that is developed by Renaissance Learning. It's a company that's a national company that has normed those assessments throughout the nation. And it's a short assessment, 20 to 30 minutes, that provides, really focuses on students' reading ability, fluency, skill development, as well as math. It's STAR Math, and it gives them specific skills that they're deficient on, so that teachers can then work with those kids on those particular skills. It also gives us a measure as to where our kids are improving from a Lexile, which is a reading score, to see how they're progressing towards grade level. Because obviously we want to see where our kids are moving, and if our kids are moving, and if they're not, why?
Yeah.
Does that help?
It does. Thank
Okay.
you, sir.
All right, you wanted to?
I did. Just to address your question, again, Ms. Chambers and Ms. Buckner, when we had teachers look at this, one of their comments was, "This is overwhelming." But the more I looked through it, and when I started to use it and I started to click on it, I realized we're doing this already. This is just a formalized way of putting everything together. So as we train our teachers to use it, that's how we'll train them. Don't look at it as an entirety. We're gonna chunk it for them. It's like a user's manual, like a user manual for your car. Like, you know, if you go in looking for everything, you're gonna get overwhelmed, right? But if my key fob doesn't work, I need to know where to find that. So that's how we're gonna train our teachers, but they had similar, your educators, they had similar comments, but as they started, and they're represented here in the room tonight, as they looked at it, they were like, okay, we understand now. So it will be a process, but I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not one more thing. We don't want to do one more thing for our teachers, all right? It's a document that encompasses what best practices are and what we should be doing as high-quality instructors in the classroom. So we're also going to take this document once we do the overview and work with principals, go out and visit schools, go out and visit classrooms, talk to them about Tier 1 instruction, do some classroom observations, help to provide some feedback based on what we see and what they're seeing. And then we can calibrate that to say, okay, we're seeing the same things. Here's some supports we can put in place for you and help you with that classroom instruction. Everybody needs to improve. We all do. We're here to support. I tell my team all the time, we're a support division. That's what we do day in and day out. We support our teachers and our principals.
Any more questions? I do want to say I like what you've done. You've tried to, it's very comprehensive, but you've kind of put everything together in one spot. So it sounds good, and I like what Mrs. Hull said, how you look at it. You don't look at the whole thing, because you do become overwhelmed. So you look at it in parts, and then you'll have a better, that's what I tell my daughter all the time when she gets overwhelmed. Don't look at the whole thing, you know, do a little bit at a time, and then you'll understand it better. So it sounds good, you know, it just, I'm glad we had the opportunity for, you know, for the board to think things out. It was a lot of planning, a lot of thought has gone into it, and we can tell that.
And we need that. These are all these folks right out here.
Yeah.
These are these folks right here that do the hard work day in and day out. And then our teachers really do the hard work when they're out in the classrooms.
Right.
There's no doubt about that.
And one thing we probably need to recognize across the country, because of the teacher shortage and the number of people who've retired and so on, we are facing the most inexperienced workforce in education across this country we've ever had. The reality is, the more we can put things in one place, make it one-stop shop for teachers to access and utilize, the better off we're going to be. And that's the whole point behind this plan. That was my task I gave to DTL, and I'll never forget the look on their face when I gave them the charge. But they have met the task, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mrs. Green, did you want to comment?
No, I was ready to move on.
Okay. I'm ready to move on too. That concludes the Education Committee.
Thank you all so very much. Thank you all. As you walk out the door, we'll wave, saying thank you again for all of your hard work, keeping in mind what's best for the students, but also for the new teachers. All right. Thank you, Ms. Buckner. Our next committee is policy. Ms. Tillery? Did I jump? Yep, policy, Ms. Tillery. All right.
We have one item on the list for the policy, and it is 5.01. The recommended action is to approve the revised board policy BCBI and new regulation BCBI-R that establish the statutory requirements for a public comment period and a new regulation that set additional rules for public participation. The board is also being asked to waive the 30-day wait period. Meetings of the Board of Education are held to conduct the affairs and business of the school system. Although these meetings are not meetings of the public is invited to attend all meetings, and citizens are invited to address the board at all regular meetings at the time shown on the agenda and in accordance with procedures established by the Board of Education. Due to recent legislation, the Muscogee County Board of Education has asked for a review of current policies and procedures pertaining to public participation at board meetings. Based on a review by the legal firm, the board is recommending the following revised policy and new regulations. The BCBI is public participation in board meetings, and the BCBIR are rules of conduct and participation procedures.
And really, we've had two comments come in from board members. One was relative to the time. We currently say that the requirement to participate is 2 o'clock of the day of the meeting. Legal had suggested a time certain of 10 o'clock, just from a processing and procedural standpoint, so it can be added to the agenda, but that's totally, that was one of the comments made, so we're certainly open to that. And the second comment pertained to, help me. Oh, the address of participants, and that was, I think everyone kind of came to consensus, or I don't want to speak for the board, but I think there was discussion around, that it was important to have the addresses there to make sure they are truly a tax-paying resident of Muscogee County or not from someplace outside the county, but that they list their there was concern about it being a public address, so it's something that would just be listed with Ms. Jones when the person called into the office to keep that part anonymous as long as they met the requirements of being a Muscogee County resident. So I don't think that was something that was required for us to put out in public, but there was just a request that it be noted with Ms. Jones to ensure that, again, that they were a resident.
Any additional thought on the time? 24 hours is where we were. Is there a consensus interested in shortening that requirement?
2 o'clock.
It's 2 o'clock.
It is currently it's 2
The
o'clock right now.
recommendation, did you put it back?
We haven't done anything to it. It
Yeah,
says
it's 8 hours.
It said, I think they moved it to 10 o'clock was what Mr. Ellington had suggested.
So ours was 2 o'clock.
Hold on.
GSBA just said to be compliant, we needed to be no more than 24 hours.
No more than 24.
Which we were already compliant, so I don't really know why we
I think,
want to
again,
change it. And to my knowledge, we have not been overrun by any means by people on the public agenda.
So is there a consensus to keep the 24 hours? I'm just trying to
oh,
get to
no,
that point.
well, we have to keep the
Keep
24.
2 o'clock, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Ms. Jones, was there any concern on your part from that standpoint? You think 2 o'clock works from your perspective?
Okay.
Okay, so
I think
we
the
can revise that.
consensus, am I correct that the consensus is to leave it at 2 o'clock?
And then just put the address, notate that.
Notate
to
the
Ms.
address
Jones.
with your office.
Right.
I do want to say that, you know, when people come to be on public agenda, it's public agenda. And so if you're looking for any anonymity, you do have the option to speak directly with the superintendent's office to remain in private. But when you come before the board, because it's a public meeting open to the public, you're gonna lose that anonymity. Just wanted to add that. You have a question, Ms. Jackson? Hold on a second.
The address is not gonna be made public,
No.
is it?
No, it's
No,
gonna stay with
the idea would
superintendent's
just be that
office.
they register that when they say, we're going to be, the way the policy reads, they would ask the topic to speak on and give their address, but the topic would be made public, but not the address.
And the time will stay the same. Any other concerns?
Very good.
We're all
make those-
clear.
I think-
You
Make
make
that
those
revision.
updates. All right, any concern about waiving the 30-day? Hitcher. Ms. Chambers.
Just as a rule of thumbs, and of course, if the board wants to waive it, I'm fine with that. But I think that when we set a policy, that we will let policies sit for 30 days. Unless it's an emergency, there's no reason for us to keep waiving our own policy. To me,
Except
we
that this is
should.
legislatively mandated.
Right, but if, I don't see a difference between now and 30 days. I think they give us time to at least vote on it and make it a policy. And so I know there have been times when something has come up and it was an emergency. We needed to do it. But in times when it's not an emergency, just for integrity's sake, we have a policy that says if we're gonna change a school board policy, that it sits on the table for 30 days. That gives your public time to weigh in and other people time to weigh in and do some homework. We may see something, not on this policy necessarily, but we may see something that we didn't see when it was brought to us initially. 30 days gives us time to do our homework.
I think that the difference is, I mean, emergency probably is one way to say it, but when it's a mandate, there is no public weigh-in. We don't even have a weigh-in on certain items when we're asked. I don't think it's a frequency of waiving it, but to your point, yes, that's the policy, but we do, if we're being asked to waive it for compliance reason, it's not nowhere near the same as an emergency, but it's just about being in compliance. And so I don't know if, Ms. Smith, if you want to weigh in on this particular one that we're asking about. Okay, Ms. Chambers. Oh, you hit your mic. Hold on, let me turn you back on. All right.
My recommendation then would be that we go back and look at our policy that says policies have to sit for 30 days and have a caveat that says if it's legislatively mandated, the 30 days does not have to be. I just have a problem with us keep waiving our own policy. It's logistical, so.
Ms. McRae?
And I will say, to be clear, we didn't have to do all the stuff we put in here. I think the only thing we really had to do was there needed to be language added that relates to how to, the procedure if somebody is unruly or out of order. That was the only thing I think we really had to add. I think legal took the opportunity to look and see if there were other changes that need to be made. But again, you know, we are kind of expounding and doing more than had to be done. So I think 30 days is a good idea.
And I would just add that as to this particular policy, and Ms. Chambers, thank you, I like the idea of the caveat of if it's legislatively required, then that's the exception. But this particular policy, Ms. McRae is correct, this was, the main change was to adopt rules of conduct for public meetings. And so by August of each year and by October, the legislature has indicated that you were to at least review, not necessarily revise, but those rules of conduct every single year. So that was the urgency on this one.
And so in going forward, also, we need to put that timestamp on here. This was needed by October, and that was the reason for asking for the waiver and not just asking for the waiver.
And I will point out, for whatever difference it might make, is because we have next week, there is an additional week of review, because we will not meet because of we don't meet next week, we meet the following week on the 24th. We have, plus,
Ms. Buckner?
Okay, I was just trying to make sure, so it had to be done in October. Okay.
Are there any other questions?
So just to be clear, I'm just revising all I'm doing is revising the address to be identified to Ms. Jones, not to be made public, and the time goes back from 10 back to our current time of 2 o'clock. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, that's it for policy.
Thank you, Ms. Tillery. Dr. Sly, Discipline Committee.
Madam Chair, the Discipline Committee has nothing to submit at this time.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Jackson, Personnel.
Has one item that's 8.01, that's the personnel report. Are there any questions?
I have a standard question.
Hit your.
Okay,
Hold on one second. Ms. Buckner.
I have just a standard question in terms of how are we doing in terms of teacher deficiency. And I think I'll just go and ask Ms. Jackson's question about bus drivers too.
Oh.
Thank you, Ms. Buckner. For teachers, I thought you would want to know that the special ed teachers and pairs are at 52 vacancies, and general ed teachers and pairs are at 50. And I have the numbers for the bus drivers, but you want me to go? Okay. Bus driver, general ed, we've got 39 vacancies. The substitute bus driver, there's 12 remaining. And then for the special education bus drivers, there's 2.5.
So I noticed on the report, we hired a lot of, does this report, the 39, does that include the ones that we've hired?
Yeah, these are the most recent numbers.
Okay.
And if you remember from the last report, there was a job fair where there were some people who were some drivers who were in training. So they're at this point, they have gone through that training, so the number has decreased since the last time.
Okay, because I noticed we hired, on your report, there were a lot higher.
And there's more coming.
So you said the numbers for the teacher is 52?
Special
Special
ed,
ed.
special ed and 50 for regular ed. Oh, that was a flip.
52 for special ed.
Yeah, that's what we said.
And 50 for general ed.
Yeah, that's what I said.
And that's a combined para and teacher.
Yes, that's combined. If you want me to break it down more, let's see. I heard, she said that's okay.
That's Ms. Williams.
That's Ms. Williams.
Yeah, I would like to know.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to know.
No, I have it for you. So special ed teachers, 21.
Oh, 21, it's not.
General ed teachers, 32.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Oh, and then you want paras is, special ed paras is 31, and general ed paras is 18.
Yes, I'm sorry. No, go on, Ms.
Oh,
McBride.
I was just going to say, I noticed quite a few substitute teachers added. So do we know what that's attributed to? Or, I mean, that's a very good thing. Because that, there were lines of bus drivers and substitute teachers, and I know those are areas we've really struggled with too, so.
I
it's
think
good news.
the lack of COVID and the economy is kind of
true,
making it
yeah.
attractive to return to doing substitute work again.
And the salary increased.
So any more questions? All right, back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Cantrell, Construction Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move on to 9.01, new elementary school for the change order. Approve change order number 5 for the purchase of builder's risk insurance. The purchase of the builder's risk insurance is $91,000. If there are no claims against the project, $25,000 will be credited back at the completion of the project. The funding source is approved construction contingency. Any questions, ladies, gentlemen? Mr. Anderson, you have you don't have a presentation, okay. Just making sure. 9.02, a construction award, construction manager. May 16th, the board approved architect Sudhir Patel as the architect for the Arnold Middle School modernization project. 5 companies expressed interest in the project by showing up the required site visit. After the required site visit, all 5 companies completed the bid process. The responding companies are listed below, with the recommended company is River City Contracting. No questions. Move on to 9.03, renovation project, Matthews Elementary. The board approved an overall budget of $2,685,000 for Matthews Elementary renovations. Secure 4 classrooms addition. After the bidding process was completed, the construction budget came in at $1,682,000, significantly lower than anticipated and under the original approved budget. So it looks like we're saving $808,000 off the original budget, so that's good news.
Yeah, that's not a typo, right? We really.
Yep. That's what it
They were, I
says.
mean, I kept kind of looking back at that going, am I reading that wrong?
Not used to it.
Yeah, that's good news too.
Yes, very good news. 9.04 middle school athletic field upgrades. As part of the 2020 East Plus, the school district will upgrade the middle school athletic fields. The project has been broken into phases because of the size of the project. Engineering services, that engineering form for phase 3 is for Aaron Cohen, Blackman Road, and Double Churches. Any questions on that? If no questions, that's all from the construction committee. Madam Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Cantrell. Property Committee, Ms. Chambers.
Did we have a question? Mr. Battle?
I wanted to give an update on Otis Spencer Stadium, if that's okay. Dr. Lewis and the board, thank you for letting me come up here tonight. My name is Jeff Battles, Director of Athletics for Muscogee County School District. I wanted to give an update on Otis Spencer Stadium. As most of you know, on Saturday, this Saturday, the 15th, we will have our ribbon cutting ceremony at Otis Spencer Stadium at 10 a.m. We're going to open the stadium up to the public at 9:30. We're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony at 10, and then around 10:30, we should be done with that. And for the next hour, we're going to have the stadium open as sort of an open house for the public, for the community to walk around, see everything we've done, look at it, explore, and just look at the wonderful facility we built down there in our community, for our community. A couple things, I just passed out a little infographic for you. This is what is going out to our media services. So I just wanted you to see the same thing that they see. The site's a little over 38 acres. The stadium seats over 6,000 by GHSA code, and there's a difference there because GHSA requires that you have a 24-inch seat, where the city requires you have an 18-inch seat. So by GHSA standards, we can sit over 6,000, which allows us to host any event for the GHSA because it is big enough. It is a turf field, an artificial turf field. It's marked for football, flag football, soccer, and can be marked for lacrosse. There are 5 tennis courts on hand that we'll be using this spring for some tennis matches. We have over 100 lavatories. There's concession stands on both sides. The parking lot is paved with right around 800 paved parking spaces. There is a press box that has room for media, coaches for the teams, school administrators, all nice press box. And then there's a field house at the end that has 2 locker rooms that are able to sit 100 players in each locker room, which is much needed for some of our teams. There's an officials room in there, and there's also a restroom facility, so when there are tennis matches, the tennis players can access a restroom.
That would be nice.
We are planning on our first game there is not this week, but next Thursday after the ribbon cutting. We have Kendrick playing there on Thursday and Spencer playing there on Friday. They're both playing schools from out of town, from Macon. And then we will have, in total, we'll have 5 varsity football games there, but between October 20th, which is our first date, and Thanksgiving, we're looking about 19 total events between flag football, middle school football, and varsity football. So we're really excited to get into the facility and get using it. There are a couple things I want to bring to your attention that aren't positive. For one, our elevator has been delayed. And so anybody wanting to go to the press box over the next few weeks will have to use the steps, which is a very good workout, I can tell you. The elevator is coming. It's just, like everything else, a delay. And then there are some little punch list items that they will be completing over the next 3 or 4 weeks, just small things that really don't affect the facility. So, are there any questions that you may have?
No, ma'am. I'm next. You had called my committee.
I do have just one comment. That sports complex is very impressive. And so I'm going to ask you the question that somebody asked me as they were driving by the stadium, and they want to know if they could purchase one of a seasonal sports room, a sports box. And they want to know how much we're reselling the boxes for, and if that was going to be added on later.
Well, there are no boxes to purchase, unfortunately. We did not put a club level in here. The boxes are for the teams and the media, and we've had some really good media coverage this year and last year. We're averaging at least 2 radio stations covering our games. They got 2 radio stations that are covering a game every Friday, and that's been really good for the community. So we're hoping, and those boxes should get filled up with media and newspaper and those such.
Yeah, that's a true story. They want to be in first to get that box.
Yes, and as far as the there are some back seats that you'll see when you get out there. They're on the home side in the middle section. There's some blue seats, and those seats, as you can see in the picture, if you look at it on the left, that's the home side where you see them. Those seats, we have had the questions of purchasing those seats. Those seats are not for purchase. They are first come, first serve, and they are there for our community members to enjoy. And some of our community members who like the back seat, they are there for them. So, why are they blue? Well, Muscogee County colors are like a navy blue and a gold, and that was the closest we could get to the navy blue of Muscogee County.
But why just those 2 rows? 1.5 rows? I mean,
Well, it's 3 sections is what it is. Yeah. And the sections outside of that are regular aluminum bleachers. They are special, yes, ma'am, if you get there early. Thank you all. Look forward to seeing you Saturday.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, moving on. Ready? Okay. Property Committee, 10.01, the easement request from Georgia Power. The superintendent is recommending that we approve the resolution requesting assistance from Georgia. Am I on the right one? 1 second. I apologize. 10.01 is the easement, and Georgia Power is requesting to purchase power distribution line easements along Casita Road on land parcels 005, 011, 012, and 047, owned by the Muscogee County School District. Georgia Power will pay Muscogee County School District $10 for each easement. That is a budgetary impact of $40. We talked about this before. Any questions, board members? Okay. Hearing none, I'll go on to 10.02. This is a resolution. The superintendent is recommending that we approve the resolution requesting assistance from the Georgia DOE Facilities Services in the development of a new local 5-year facilities plan. And the resolution is attached. Any questions? Okay, hearing none. I'll go on to 10.03, which is the library report. I won't read it to you. It is attached. I will say that the library is taking over the Lena Start program from West Central Georgia Health District. This program is a logical fit for the library as it includes a parent education component and modeling important concepts that tie directly into literacy, the basic and first readers of Muscogee County. Staff will do classes both at the library and other sites in Muscogee. We will offer in-person and virtual sessions and intend to do some in Spanish. When more children are prepared for school, we all benefit. Okay. Any other questions about the library report? Sure. Ms. Buckner?
One question about the library. Do we, I know, at one time, at the North Branch, there was a Spanish class for the public. Do they still do that? Do you still do any classes like that, community classes like that? I took it for a couple of times and stopped, but I was wondering. No. Okay.
Okay, hearing no further questions, I'm going to move on to 10.04, which is the museum report. It is attached. I won't read it to you, but I will mention that we are delighted to hear that from Southeast Museum Conference that we won awards in its annual publication competition. The poster for It Came From Storage, Canvases, Curiosities, and Other Objects from the Museum Vault won a gold medal in the poster category. And the catalog for Alma W. Thomas, Everything is Beautiful, won a bronze medal in the books and catalog category. All right. There are some other important news there, but I won't read it to you. It is attached. Any other questions about the museum report? All right, hearing none, I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Chambers. Final committee is Finance Committee, Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have 12 items before you in your Finance Committee section. Purchase exception A and B is 11.01. I want to speak generally to the Finance Committee for a minute because I've said this a couple of times, and I'm going to say it a little more strenuous this time. I need more information. These various vendors isn't working for me because, you know, I can go to some of these, for instance, in structure, and I can get a pretty good detailed explanation of what it is for, or the Art of Education, an excellent description of what they're requesting. But I go to various vendors and I get nothing but a name, and I don't know what IXL Learning for $300,000 is. So I need over the next 2 weeks, whoever's responsible for these various items to please send me some detailed information about what it is, because I hesitate to ask anybody to come up to the microphone and describe every single thing because there's not necessarily any questions. But if I had the information prior to this, then I could better brief the board and be able to answer any questions or ask them myself.
Well, and I'd like to ditto what Ms. Williams said. I had asked about a month ago the same thing that was, behind the door. Not at the table, but just said, I think we need to have more detail on the various vendors. I always get nervous when things get lumped
Especially
together.
something that's there's 2 items under various vendors that add up to almost $500,000.
So can I speak to that for just a minute and ask a question, a clarifying question? Tim Smith, Executive Director of Federal Programs. We have, for the last several years, done threshold increases, requests. The only reason for those requests are to address school desires to make purchases as they go through the year.
Well, schools desire a lot of things, but you're
Correct.
asking the board to vet these various items and determine whether or not they're appropriate for passage as a board action. And there's no information whatsoever that explains what it is for or who it's for.
So my clarifying question then is this: do you want us to stop doing that and then just bring requests as schools are making specific requests for purchases, which is fine?
No. I don't think that's what's being asked.
I thought what I asked was pretty clear. Over the next 2 weeks, I would like to have the information that is not articulated in these board items to be sent to me and the rest of the board. So if we have any questions before passing it, we may ask them, because the way it is presented to us as various vendors increase threshold is unacceptable.
Okay.
And I think, sorry.
Go ahead.
Going forward, which is kind of what I'd mentioned, I think, instead of having line 3 various vendors, take each one of those vendors and itemize them out like we do under every other kind of expense category, so that we can look at this and go, because sometimes we may or may not delve further, but we can look at this, see the number, and then go, okay, and then be able to, as Ms. Williams said, go down there and then click one of the attachments that gives us, more detail on that actual agenda item. I think that would be helpful.
Or just an attachment.
It's here and in another area.
Ms. Buckner?
What's the classification of the one year? Are those professional?
No, this is under, the one I was bringing up was A and B, which is the very first item, and that's textbooks, films, slides, videotapes, newspapers, library books, reference materials, subscriptions, manipulative computer programs, and other media from publishers, distributors, agents, test scores, scoring sheets, test scoring services. So it's a pretty large bucket, and there's no explanation what it's for.
So, how do we have the A and B classified? Are those things? The A and B, just the fuel and professional learning?
The volatile?
Those are the only ones that are classified as,
Sole source?
Sole sources.
Yeah. No, this isn't
These
sole
are not,
source.
these are not sole sources.
No, ma'am.
What
It's not sole source, and it's not professional services.
Okay.
So that's and it's not items purchased off the state bid list. Those are all items for whoever's responsible for those items that I don't think the board needs to have, more information. We get that every single month. We understand that. But I think there's two different areas in my report tonight that just have I think it's the next one, various vendors, 140,000. Now that's federal programs, but still, our fiduciary responsibility to the Muscogee County residents is that this is one of our most critical responsibilities, is to ensure the proper spending of our money. I cannot do that as finance chair if I don't have the information. So I'm just asking, if it's not evident, if it's not, if it's not explained, if we could just attach it for all board members to see. We used to do that. We used to have every single item that we bid on. Then we started grouping things that made sense, like sole source and volatile. That's a good example. But this is not that. This is just, various and sundry requests. And I just would like to see that information. So, is there any other comments? Thank you.
Comment?
Yeah.
Just with that, it sounds like that you would be okay with us having a various one-line item.
Absolutely.
And then listing up underneath there kind of a ABCD.
like we used to.
And then on the board agenda, the actual attachment, that if it was Nearpod, it's a reading program.
Perfect.
Would you need more, would you be okay with that simple explanation
Absolutely.
of reading program?
For example, what I had referenced before was, one is for cloud subscription and support. That's 4 words, The other was personalized professional learning platform with on-demand access to instructional video training and supplemental resources exclusively for art educators, including product training and implementation support. Bam, 1 paragraph. And now I know what I'm asking to report and present to the board for a vote.
But for federal, like with this, for the federal programs, you wouldn't expect us to have, for this situation, there's 6 items listed. We don't need 6 additional attachments with all of that information. We could still leave it as the 1 attachment with just further explanation on that 1 attachment.
Yes.
Okay,
And then if we have a question about that 1 item, we can drill down on that. But without anything, I've got 6 questions, but we've got 2 weeks, and that's plenty of time for us to digest the information. So, are there any other questions on purchase exceptions A and B 11.01? Moving forward, 11.02, is purchase exception D, renewals. You have 3 items, well, 2 items, 2 of them are from the same software license. Any questions? Purchase exception E, again, various frequently used vendors for $140,000. I haven't a clue what that is, except that if you look at the attachment, there's 5 items listed, but it doesn't tell me what it's for. 11.04, purchase exception F, invitation to bid. You have 3 items. There's our VirtueCom. Strategic equipment and CDW for security. This is Ms. Bloodworth, this is a good example because like this first item, CDW, security cameras, Otis Spencer Stadium. Boom. I know what it's for. Thank you. Any questions? 11.05, purchase exception G, professional services. You have 5 items under professional services. Any questions? Seeing none, your monthly report, 11.06, sole source and volatile purchases. 11.07 is your purchase exception, or your competitively bid. You have 6 items that include school nutrition and the gym floor and some security video surveillance. Any questions? 11.09 is your new budgets. There's only 1 item under Division of Student Services, your GNETS grant. Questions? 11.10, budget adjustment. You have 2 items under Division of Student Services, which includes the hygiene products and the math and science. Any questions? 11.11, my favorite. This is the donations. And you know, I get to do this monthly, okay? So this is every month. It's not like we're just adding to it on a monthly basis or repeating any of them. There's 33 donors on here with an excess of $21,000 in cash donations, but then there's at least 20 grand more of in-kind donations. That's just amazing. That's just amazing. So thank you on behalf of the board for the generous contributions and donations and in-kind as well. And last but not least, 11.12 is your monthly financial statements, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Ms. Williams. And just to reiterate to Dr. Smith and Ms. Bloodworth, 11.04 is a good example of how to space that out for us to be informed. Ms. Chambers?
On the 11.02, the Archie Service Company renewal, is that $200,000 just in case the refrigerator needs to be repaired? Just in case?
Yes, that is. It is just in case.
Okay, so if the refrigerator does not need to be repaired at all, we still pay them the $200,000?
No.
Okay.
We get billed each time they come out and do our services, and so we are setting a level at which we think we're going to stay below. So it's more of a not to exceed amount
So
that
you're
we're
asking us
asking for
to
that.
approve this money so you won't have to come back
Each
to
time,
spend
yeah.
this?
It's a
Okay.
budget, maintenance budget.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's a not to exceed amount that each time they come out and service us.
It's like an open purchase order up to that
Right.
amount.
I got it. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so very much. Dr. Lewis, you have
I
something
just
closing
want to
out?
again recognize our staff for all the hard work they're doing. We certainly do appreciate that. Certainly want to ask everyone to keep those families we mentioned earlier in our thoughts and prayers. They're going to need a lot of support, not just now, but for months and probably years ahead. So that's important as well. And then finally, we want to celebrate our graduation rate of 92%. That represents an awful lot of perseverance and work. That when you couple that with the I'm sorry, and when you couple that with the SAT scores that the students are working to try and accomplish, again, that's not every senior, of course, but it shows that the kids are doing well, and the longer they're with us, the better they do, and we're really proud of that as well, overall. And then, of course, the ribbon cutting, we mentioned already. Just want to encourage the community to come out. We thank you for your East Blast support that makes these kind of projects possible, that without that would not otherwise be possible. So thanks again to everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you. It's just a goodbye. We are adjourned. Thank you so very much.